Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order, our meeting of December 15th, 2021 for the City of Murfreesboro Planning Commission. We do have a quorum present today, and our first item will be to approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2021 and December 1st, 2021 Planning Commission meetings. Did anyone have any changes, corrections, additions to those minutes?
If not, I'll make a motion we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we have our consent agenda. And does anybody have any items on the consent agenda they would like to have removed for further discussion?
If not, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we have our plats and plans. Our first item is Singer Park Master Plan and Preliminary Plat for 4 lots on 5.1 acres, zoned light industrial, located along Northwest Broad Street and Singer Road. Michael Hazlett is the developer. Ms. Green, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The first item is for you to consider a master plan, and the master plan itself is in relatively good order, but because of the nature of the item, we generally include these on the Planning Commission, the agenda as a regular business, is to create 4 lots located along Northwest Broad Street, directly across from the Rivers Landing PUD that was approved a couple years ago. It's just south of Singer Road. Thank you. I had it in my hand lifted upstairs. I was going to impress you all with my quick navigating, but I guess now I'll pull this up.
The agenda's loaded on there, Margaret Ann.
It didn't look like it. It is now. There you go.
Never hurts.
Yeah. And so this is a commercial development, and because they're going to create 4 lots, they're required to do a master plan. The following item will be for a site plan for Lot 1, which is actually on the corner of Singer Road and Northwest Broad Street. And it's for a gas station / convenience store, or what is sometimes referred to as a C store, C short for convenience. And so this item, of course, is coming first. You can see the area on the map, and then I'll do a blow up. You can, across Broad Street is Overall Creek and its floodway. It touches this property just on the corner, but the majority of this property is not located within the floodway. It does have a few very hard boundaries. The railroad, which on the ortho photo you can see the train cars that run along one side of it, Broad Street, Singer Road, and then to the south is actually a bridge for Overall Creek. So this property is a difficult property anyway because it doesn't have the depth that you really want to have when you develop property. However, Mr. Taylor and his team at SEC have worked on a master plan that we think will be able to extend utilities and do some development here. The master plan does show possibilities here, and here, but that's just illustrative to give you an idea of what could go there. Approving this master plan obviously isn't approving the site plan. It's just giving you an idea of how it can be served by city services. We will look at a site plan for this one on the corner, as I mentioned. So staff would ask that you do approve this subject to all staff comments. They are working with CUD. This plan currently doesn't show water service to the additional lots. However, CUD has begun the design for those, and so we expect that they'll be able to be served by water even though it's not shown on the plat. We'd ask for you to approve this subject to all staff comments today.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Green on the master plan and preliminary plat?
I guess I'll just, a general question just to make sure. I mean, staff is on board with thinking that based on these drawings that we're not going to get to a point when it comes time for us to approve the site plan. I mean, that we can get the parking in, we can do all this. I mean, we're at a point where you guys suggest to us, yeah, let's move forward with this.
So the plat meets our minimum requirements that we have when we review plans. It may be that they can't have certain uses that are permitted in the industrial zone. It may be even though it's something that the zoning ordinance says is allowed, they can't get the parking or the distance what have you. This would not be a candidate for a variance for development because these are newly created lots. It's not like they predate the ordinances that we have here. So we have a plan for elements, but just the nature of the lots may limit what they can actually do with this property.
Okay. I'll move. Any more questions? I make a motion we approve with staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item B then is the Singer Park Lot 1 Site Plan Review for 4,500 square foot gas station / convenience store on 1 acre, zoned light industrial, located along Northwest Broad Street and Singer Road. Crescent Mahita is the developer. Ms. Green.
Thank you again. This next item is Lot 1 of the plan that you just reviewed, and it's located actually at the corner of Singer Road and Northwest Broad Street at Zone Light Industrial District, LI, across from the River Landing PUD. Singer Road is a local road, whereas Northwest Broad Street is a highway and a major arterial. So the proposed use is the gas station convenience store. It's about 4,500 square feet. The front of it is oriented toward Broad Street as required by our ordinance. And then there is a accessory gasoline canopy on the site, and that was able to meet our setbacks as well. And here's a site plan for the property. Broad Street, of course, is a state highway, and the access points to that are regulated by TDOT. And so you can see that the access to Broad Street here is limited to a right-in, right-out, and that's based on the fact that there's a raised concrete median. So you physically should not be able to make that turn, even if you drive a truck that maybe could hop the curb. So that access is limited to just right-in, right-out. Generally, we would, in our comments, you probably saw that we asked the applicants to have a right-in, right-out on Singer Road. That was prior to not knowing that they couldn't get full access on Broad Street. Because they can get full access on Broad Street, I think staff is comfortable at this time with the full access on Singer. They did push it to the as far from the intersection as they can, and so this plan does show a full access to Singer Road. The building itself is a one-story building, and they were able to design around our design guidelines. You can see that it's a brick building with 2 shades of brick. The gasoline canopy is not a flat canopy, and you can see that there's some interest in the roof line. And then the staff comments that we provided, there were quite a few staff comments that said, prior to even coming to Planning Commission, we need some very important things to be worked out. And so Mr. Taylor and his team have been working on that. One of the most significant ones is that they were proposing to put the underground fuel tanks in on a water line, within a water line easement, and there were some other hindrances. And so since the time that this was published, and then today Mr. Taylor was able to get us a plan that showed shifting the site and moving those underground fuel tanks out of the water line, CUD's water line. Some of those comments were not able to be addressed before today, but we think that if you make approval subject to all staff comments, we'll ensure that prior to them getting permits, we do get all the comments addressed. So if you have read some of the comments, you may have questions from those, but Mr. Taylor is here as well, and if you have questions about the design or what he's been able to do to shift it around to actually address the concerns that we have, he'll be glad to answer them. And then there was an above-ground fuel tank that I mentioned in the staff comments that I said needed to be removed. There were several conflicts with it, and so the plan that I received since this was published and today removed that above-ground fuel tank and pump, so it's not proposed at all. And so I would like you to know that moving forward, that won't be a part of the plan either. Mr. Taylor has been working on including an electric vehicle charging station with this site, which I think is a trend because we've seen a couple, probably 3 the last couple months come in. And so we're looking at making sure it's located not in the setbacks and not in a place where the cables would be draped across the sidewalk and create a tripping hazard, but they're aware of that and actively working on that. And then I also asked for a detail prior to permits of that electric vehicle charging station, because in other communities I've seen some that have very large, like flat screen TVs on them and other elements, so I would want to ensure that it doesn't go against our sign ordinance either. And so they have committed to, prior to permits, getting that to us, if you're comfortable with that as well. So those are the items that I wanted to bring up. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Mr. Taylor, do you have anything additional to add? No? Okay.
Margaret Ann, will these other lots have access to this lot of record at all?
There'll be a cross-access easement where they
Okay.
can get to Singer Road by going through the fronts of them.
Okay. Do you anticipate the other lots having access to Broad Street, or they would all
anticipate-
flow?
Additional right-in, right-out.
Okay. All right.
Have any other questions regarding this site plan?
If there are none, I'll make a motion we approve, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have item C. It is Sanders Corner, Phase 1 and 2, a site plan review for 10,708 square foot commercial center and 5,238 square foot gas station on 2.8 acres, zoned PCD, located along West Northfield Boulevard and Sulphur Springs Road. P&H Joint Venture is the developer. Ms. Green.
Thank you very much. These next two items are similar to the last two in the fact that we're going to look at a master plan, and then we're going to look at a site plan as the next item. So this item 5C is to consider the master plan for Sanders Corner. It will be an integrated preliminary plat and site plan, which means some of the public elements will be constructed with the site, and it's a process that's allowed under our subdivision regulations, but we just like to mention that early in our presentation so you're aware that it's an integrated plan.
Okay,
This
so,
site,
Ms. Green, can I just confirm then, so this item C is also a master plan?
it's a master plan and preliminary plat, yeah. Yes, it is.
And our item C says that it is the site plan review, and our item D says it is the integrated preliminary
Okay.
plat.
I may have.
I think they just got flip-flopped on there.
So do we need to
I can flip,
do-
though.
That's
I
what
know,
I'm
I
wondering,
can-
does it,
I think with integrated, I flipped them, and the other one wasn't integrated, so that's probably why it was
okay.
on my
So we're
automated.
good to go ahead with this.
Yeah, so I'll go with the site plan. So with preliminary plats, the preliminary plat's purpose is to dedicate property lines and to construct public elements. So public elements would be streets, turn lanes, median openings, and those things are typically done on a plat. When we know that development's going to happen on a site with a site plan, we will say, well, that public work is generally required to be done prior to allowing site plan move forward. But when we know you're going to be out there constructing a site, we have this integrated approach that says, well, we're going to let you construct the public elements at the same time as the private elements. So this site has some turn lane improvements, it has some widening, it has some private drive elements that are serving the public. So what makes this different as far as integrated is those public elements that would normally be a part of just a preliminary plat and have to be done before the site plan can be moved forward are actually permitted to be done at the same time as the site plan. So that's the difference in a traditional preliminary plat and an integrated. And that's why I mixed them up. And so the site plan for Sanders Corner is actually showing some public improvements, which generally a site plan wouldn't. So just go on that. But this is a PCD. When you reviewed the PCD, there were 3 lots, 1, 2, and 3, and they were to be done in 3 phases. This plan still proposes 3 lots, but the first 2 are going to be part of the first phase. So what you're going to see is the gas station, restaurant, fast food restaurant, gas canopy, and the commercial center done with phase 1. So it's a little different from the zoning, which is allowed. You can move the phasing up, so they're going to do the 2 at one time. And the office building that you may remember that was in the back will be done at some future date. And so the site plan is for both the lots 1 and 2. And they will be separate lots of record, but they are designed to be integrated and share access and share some formal open space elements, share some parking, and there will be a shared parking agreement that'll be recorded to make sure that they can, that they'll be allowed to share parking. So in the future, if the property is transferred, maybe one of the lots, that it will be a recorded document that everybody's aware of. I believe that the plan that's submitted to you meets your expectation from the zoning. The architecture is what was shown in the zoning book. The site layout is very similar. Of course, at this stage, they've been able to really get into the nuances of the grading and the drainage and the stormwater and the landscaping. They still need to work on the formal open space that was shown in the plans, and I think that they'll be able to do that prior to permit, and that's something that, if you're comfortable moving forward with, I'll work with them to make sure they get their formal open space to meet the intent of the formal open space and not just be some kind of open space. The one element where I thought that there needed to be additional work was the stormwater that was at the corner. There is let's see if I can find the drainage. Because it's so visible and at the intersection, we really wanted an opportunity to dress that up. And I wanted them to talk to you about what they were doing with the stormwater element there. And because sometimes some of these look really nice and they hold water and they're features, and sometimes they just have a little mud at the bottom and aren't really landscaped. I think in the comments they said that it was going to be bermed, but when I looked at the contours, there wasn't really a berm around it. So I think they can do a little better on the design there, and really wanted to have your feedback. It is, of course, the entrance really into an area that's kind of residential. And so the things that I think that I mentioned in the staff comment are things that can be addressed in staff comments. What I would like from you is to have the feedback on what you think about that stormwater pond. We have determined that they can be amenities. In this case, I don't think it's quite there as an amenity. I think it's still something that maybe will take away from the really pretty buildings that are here in the formal open space. I think they probably can go a little bit further with it. But Mr. Taylor probably can provide some additional details on that. Did you have a question for me? Yeah. Oh, no. Okay.
Good afternoon. Matt Taylor from SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard. Both of our ponds, the ones at the corner, at the intersection of Northfield and Sulphur Springs, as well as the one that is only along Sulphur Springs and at the intersection of that Oak Haven Drive right-of-way. Both of those are bermed in relative to the right-of-way. So the road in both of those cases are 2 to 3 feet below our berm, and then we also have shrubbery planned along that as well. So it's going to screen that from the passerby. We don't want those to be ugly either. I mean, those are our front doors. So we'll work with Margaret Ann. I think the picture inside the comments was not the pond that she was looking at. I think we had looked at a different spot on that particular site plan. So we're happy to work with her, but we feel like they're screened and will not detract from the site. We're spending a lot of money here. We don't want the stormwater feature to drag that down. So happy to do that.
So you're saying the berm will be higher than the road level?
Yes, ma'am. Anywhere through there, it varies because the road's going up and all those things, but anywhere from about 2 to 3 feet higher than the road itself. And then on top of that, you have the shrubbery. So I think those shrubs are in the neighborhood of 2 feet tall. Some of them, so you're looking at maybe a 3 to 5 foot barrier that keeps you from looking down in there. So I'm not going to say a semi-truck driver is not going to look, but a normal car driver is not going to be able to see down in there.
Not to bring up old topics, but remind me, did we eventually approve a liquor store at this location or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the roadway is going all the way behind it?
No, sir. The roadway is actually, with this phase, is only coming to that shared drive between the two buildings that we're proposing right now. With a future phase, we would extend it up and connect it into the rear parking lot, but it does not go all the way to connect to existing Oak Haven with this plan.
Okay, thank you.
But the liquor store, we show that on our site plan as being the easternmost 4,000 square feet of the building, which is in line with where we had committed to in the pattern book.
It still just connects to the back parking lot and does not connect through.
Right. I just couldn't remember what we decided.
Yep. Well, it's different what we decided and what council decided.
Oh, okay. That's what was throwing me a little bit.
Not me.
I know.
I'm
Just kidding. I was just kidding.
But anyway, it's not connecting all the way.
Okay.
Hey, if he's good, I was going to go back on these detention ponds. So, I know that we're trying to get those off the roads. Generally, I think that's part of our neighborhood code or whatever code or ordinance or something, that we don't allow these on the roads. This is on an extremely major intersection of two major roads, in my opinion. Are the shrubs, I guess, I've always had a problem with the development. I'm not hiding that. I'm going to approve, this or whatever. This, I think it's past my preference at this point. But as far as the detention stuff goes, I mean, what it looks like in this drawing, I'm assuming is different. I mean, it's going to be fully screened, or it's going to be a 2-foot tall bush here and a 2-foot tall bush 5 feet away and a 2-foot tall bush 5 feet away.
The shrubs are at 5 feet on center, but that also has to do with the, letting them have enough room to grow healthy. And so whenever they are first planted, there will probably be some gappage there. But let me get over to the landscape plan.
I'll tell you, just for consistency's sake, I've had a discussion with somebody else on a completely different development that needed to try to get their detention out on the road in order to be able to, and my take on it was, as long as it is screened, and I mean screened, not kind of, that I'm good with it, that I can be okay with it. And there's one that I sort of used as an example that I felt it was fine to be on the road because all you could see was evergreen trees, frankly, I would not be in favor of having them 5 feet apart. I think what they did on theirs was they were sort of offset, so they still had room to grow, but it screened from the road. And as busy as that intersection is, and knowing that we're going to have parking lot right next to it, and
What we can do is we can add a double
throwing
row.
stuff in it and being junky,
We can add a double row where they're staggered through there. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. I think that'd be better. I mean, I think that would be
Agree.
helpful, at least to keep it more screened instead of letting it be fill up with wrappers and cigarette butts.
Sure, I think there are two approaches. You can make them really pretty, so they can design it really pretty or screen it. You may want 36 inches, the minimum of the gateway. I don't know if it is possible. You may want to go from 24-inch minimum shrubs to 36.
I mean, I think between the berming and the shrubs, we'll achieve that 36, which
I'm comfortable with whatever y'all work out on it. I just don't think 5 feet apart would be satisfactory.
Yeah, we can.
Ask for a sightline study too that shows actually what you are seeing with the elevations on there.
Yeah, we can do that too. That's not a problem.
All right.
I promised Margaret Ann a pretty pond during zoning. I will. I don't think I've lied to her in 17 years. I'm going to start now.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thanks.
Any other concerns or comments regarding this site plan review?
There were changes. I guess I neglected to remember all the changes from Planning Commission and City Council, but there were changes to the what was required, and I did have them put the notes of some of the conditions on the site plan. They're in the zoning, but I think it never hurts to have them listed in multiple places. And so Mr. Taylor and his design team, let's see if I can, they changed the mouse on me so I can't move this one around as quick, did include those notes here on the site plan, and it's liquor store signage to meet GDO 3 standards, and I think he's working with an attorney to get that worked out because that was part of the approvals. Shared parking for all the lots was to be completed. Liquor store may occupy a maximum of 4,000 square feet of the gross floor area. Outdoor storage prohibited, including garden and lawn supplies. Outdoor speakers for the patio are permitted, they just can't be amplified and shall only be for background ambiance. At this time, there's no outdoor music proposed by the developer. Gas station convenience store operation hours shall be 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., and that's consistent with the plan. Liquor store operation hours are allowed to be 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Sunday. Remaining business operation hours are allowed to be 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Lots 2 and 3, and this plan does include Lot 2 as part of the construction, so probably this will end up being 3, but lots 2 and 3 are not to be used for parking of construction equipment or storage trailers after completion of Lot 1. Lot 2 and 3 may not be used for any temporary business, flea markets, fireworks stands, Velvet Elvises, those sorts of things. So those are in the zoning. We also have them in the site plan, and then so we'll have those to reference in the future, and those were some of the special conditions of this plan development.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
If not, I'll move for approval, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Merry Christmas.
Oh, no, one more.
No.
Sanders Court integrated plat, preliminary plat for 3 lots on 4.6 acres zoned PCD located along West Northfield Boulevard and Sulphur Springs Road. E&H Venture Developer.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Words taste.
I'm not used to getting things wrong. I'm all flustered from mixing up my things. It's a hard life I have. Okay. The
Matt's the one
plan.
grinning the biggest, I'd like to point out.
He loves it, yeah. He revels in it. The master plan for Sanders Corner, I still had in my head that the site plan was last, and it was not. The Sanders Corner development, that's the PCD that we discussed recently, located on the corner of West Northfield and Sulphur Springs Road, is moving forward with development, and as you know, you just approved the integrated site plan for the site. This is the preliminary plat and master plan for the project that will create the ability to have 3 lots. You in the future will receive a final plat, of course, for the final creation of those lots. This property is not located in the floodway. It is, as it's located just across Sulphur Springs Road. It's zoned PCD. There is a demolition plan, of course, where they will be removing some of the existing structures on the site. The preliminary plat is consistent with the PCD, and so it would be staff's recommendation that you approve this subject to all staff comments. They've been able to meet the minimum standards required in the PCD and in the subdivision regulation documents.
Okay. Any further questions for Ms. Green regarding our integrated preliminary plat and master plan?
If there are none, I'll make a motion we approve, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Merry Christmas again.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. All right, our next item is Parkside MHA, site plan for 46 multifamily residential dwelling units on 2.78 acres, zoned PUD, located along East Castle Street and South Highland Avenue. The Murfreesboro Housing Authority is the developer. And Ms. Smith is on vacation, so Mr. Blomley is going to present for us on this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We hope Ms. Smith's having a good vacation. We'll try to fill in for her on this. She's done a lot of work on this project with the applicant and the applicant's design team. You'll recall that a few months ago, the Murfreesboro Housing Authority had a rezoning application approved by Planning Commission and Council for both their Parkside and Mercury Manor developments. That plan development incorporated both of those existing developments. It was always stated by them, though, that the first to redevelop would be the Parkside development, which is located along East Castle Street, just to the east of South Highland Avenue. It's an existing 46-unit multifamily development, and they're proposing to go back with 46 units, so no increase or decrease in density, staying exactly the same. It's consistent with what was in the plan development pattern book. There were several things that were left to be worked out at the site plan review phase, and Ms. Smith has been working hard with the design team to achieve additional detail on those items and to achieve a workable plan. They've made a lot of progress. One of those items was the formal open space, and one of the conditions of approval of the zoning is that the formal open space would be worked out during the site plan review process. And if Cable could bring up the laptop that is at my station, I would appreciate it.
They're busy. They might be having lunch or something.
I think Greg's going back in there. there are 2 buildings that front on East Castle, and then there are 4 that are internal to the site. And in between those, in the middle of all those 6 buildings is kind of a formal courtyard area. And so Ms. Smith's been working, thank you, Cable Department. Ms. Smith has been working very diligently to improve the formal open space here, and Ms. Butler of the design team has been working hand in hand with Ms. Smith on that. So far, what we have are 2 bench areas. Thank you, Mr. McKnight. 2 bench areas here underneath some trees, kind of an open area in the center, and then 2 areas with seat walls here, as well as a 5-person picnic table. So no formal recreational amenities, but more kind of passive areas for people to sit and enjoy the company of their neighbors. So there are a few additional comments regarding the formal open space within the staff comments, specifically adding some additional seating as well as some garbage receptacles. Also, with regards to the architecture has changed a little bit since the zoning plan was approved. Specifically, the federal government, and Ms. Butler, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the federal government is requiring a minimum of 60% of the facades of the structures be brick, and so they have actually increased the amount of brick on the structures. There was more cementitious siding on the previous iteration that went to Planning Commission and Council as a part of the zoning plan, so they've actually increased the amount of brick on the product. So I think we're actually getting a little bit better product with the increase in the amount of brick. And they're also required to include some awnings over the porches. So those are the main changes: the increase in the amount of brick and the awnings. Ms. Smith is still working with the design team on some aspects of the architecture, but by and large, the plan we feel is in good order, and we believe that with the approval of the plan subject to staff comments, specifically those listed in the materials, as well as the applicant continuing to work with staff on formal open space and architecture prior to the issuance of permits, we feel that will cover us, and we think the project is generally in good order. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Ms. Margaret Butler, the architect, is here if you have any questions for her, as is Mr. Bill Huddleston, the civil engineer on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Blomley. Do you have questions regarding this project, site plan for the 46 multifamily residential units for the Murfreesboro Housing Authority?
Question, you said they've added a requirement of awnings. Have we seen what those are going to look like?
Yes. We have those, and be happy to show those to you if you'd like.
Because it can change the look of the development, can you show those?
So here is, see if we could go back to, there we go. And you can see that there are portions of this facade that actually have brick from grade to roof line. And there's some that has the cementitious siding, the vertical board and batten cementitious siding. But there's a substantially greater amount of brick than was on the previous elevations, and you can see the awnings over the doors there. Ms. Butler, do you mind just stepping to the mic and going over those 2 changes to the elevations?
Not at all, Matthew. Thank you. Margaret Butler with McCarty Holsapple McCarty in Knoxville, Tennessee. Yes, as Mr. Blomley explained as we got into the design, there were a couple of changes due to the funding source and requirements for the Housing Authority. They submit on a point basis, and they get so many points for different things. And 2 of the elements that we needed to change once we got deeper into that was, like he mentioned, a 60% accommodation for brick on the facades, and then also a THDA requirement requirement that requires a 5x5 covered front entrance door. So we'd had previously in the zoning submittal some little canopies that were, in keeping with the architecture, but we had to change those to actual porches. They do have a metal roof. It's a nice element. We've just expanded on the porches that were already there. So those are the changes. I don't know, do I need to, I've got a flash drive with some
I think unless the,
elements on
I
it.
just wanted to make sure that we weren't putting up, cloth awnings or something like that. We were putting up a metal, something that was substantial.
Yes, sir, we are. The porch columns are consistent, the porches are consistent through the development with wood columns, some bracketing, and a standing seam metal roof. So it's a nice element.
Okay. Any other questions?
Not, I'll move for approval, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on, our next item will be Bucky's preliminary plat for 2 lots on 52.81 acres, zone general industrial, located along Elam Road and Joby Jackson Parkway. Bucky's LTD is the developer. Ms. Rush, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure if, Matthew, if you're still driving?
no, I think that's back on there.
Okay. Great. Thank you for your patience. Merry Christmas, everybody. So this is a preliminary plat review for a 2-lot subdivision that's located on 52.81 acres. It's located along Joby Jackson, just west of Interstate 24, the on-ramp to Interstate 24 eastbound, and Elam Road. The property is currently zoned general industrial, and the purpose of the subdivision is to create 2 lots of record and also to designate new right-of-way. The next item on the agenda is a mandatory referral for the abandonment of a portion of Elam Road and some TDOT right-of-way with city interests in it. But this particular item is for the 2-lot subdivision. This is for Bucky's. It's a proposed use that will be coming in the future before the Planning Commission. What we are asking for today is approval of a 2-lot subdivision subject to staff's comments that are contained in the staff report. And I'm happy to answer any questions from the commission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rush. Any questions regarding this preliminary plat? 2 lots.
There are none. I'll make a motion that we approve, subject to all staff comments.
May I add one thing before y'all vote? There is an outstanding annexation and zoning on part of this property, and then, of course, as Ms. Rush mentioned, there's a right-of-way abandonment, so any approval should be made subject to the annexation, the zoning, and the right-of-way abandonment all being approved as well.
Subject to the annexation being approved. What am I missing?
The annexation, the zoning, and the right-of-way abandonment.
What, Beth, you said?
What do you say? And any and other all staff comments?
And any and other all staff comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, you're welcome.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, all of you, for helping us get that right. We appreciate it. All right, next we will move into our public hearings and recommendations to City Council. We have 2 items there. The first is the mandatory referral and right-of-way abandonment to consider the abandonment of a segment of Elam Road right-of-way. Kelly Frank of Kimley Horn, on behalf of Bucky's LTD, is the applicant. Ms. Rush?
Thank you. Yes, this is the companion document, so to speak, where it is proposing to abandon the right-of-way along a segment of Elam Road, approximately 1,250 linear feet. Also, kind of the second element to this is the city's interest in the TDOT right-of-way, approximately 1,100 square feet segment along Elam Road, and that's in the crosshatch diagram that's in the, I'm sorry, the crosshatch section of the diagram that's in front of you. So the purpose of the abandonment is to allow for the development of a 76,000 square foot Bucky's commercial travel center that will be coming to you in the future, associated with parking, utilities, stormwater facilities. The abandonment of the portion of Elam Road will be ultimately relocated to the southwest of the proposed site, and it will be a 5-lane collector road. The relocation of Elam Road is in accordance with the City of Murfreesboro 2040 Major Transportation Plan. Staff is in the process of gathering comments from agencies and other staff departments, and we'll be presenting that report in summary for the public hearing. Staff is asking that the Planning Commission discuss this matter and schedule a public hearing for the mandatory referral for January 12, 2022. Thank you.
January 12th. Okay. Any questions regarding this mandatory referral and right-of-way abandonment? And if not, we need to schedule it for a public hearing on January 12th.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye. Aye. I think we got everybody. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
January 12th. Then we have a mandatory referral to consider the purchase of land and buildings at 750 South Church Street from AEDC Federal Credit Union. It's my understanding we will not be scheduling a public hearing on this, but we will be just making a motion on this. And Mr. Hankins is going to present this for us because Mr. Ives is not with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I apologize. Apparently, Mr. Ives would rather get a root canal than attend this meeting.
Gosh, I know he'd rather be here.
Priorities.
Yes, so before you for recommendation today is the purchase of the South Church Street property that was formerly Ascend Federal Credit Union. I believe what this is, according to the memo, this will temporarily house portions of the Water Resources Department and the Fire Department as they move out of their current facilities on Broad Street. And I know in Water Resources case, construct new facilities on site. Fire Department will be moving to a new headquarters. So this will temporarily house them, and then I think the city will look at other long-term plans after their facilities are completed.
Okay. Any further questions?
We're not scheduling a public hearing?
We're not?
No, I believe this can go just straight to recommendation for council.
So we're making a recommendation to that higher body.
Y'all good? Okay. I'll move that we make a recommendation for it to be heard by City Council.
Second.
That we approve.
That we approve it, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Motion and second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I'm going to make my
Next, we have staff reports and other business. We do have several items on there, even though it doesn't say that on your agenda, but our first item is to hear a report from Utility Enterprises Executive Director, Mr. Darren Gore. It's regarding our Salem Highway Sanitary Sewer Basin Study, MF11. Thank you, Mr. Gore, for coming in this afternoon.
Madam Chair.
Look forward to hearing from you.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, thank you so much, Commission members. I know you guys get excited when I get to come to the Planning Commission meetings and talk about our sewer capacity. So I appreciate the opportunity. So I'm presenting this, but Marshall Fall and Valerie Smith did the lion's share of this. This is probably a year's worth of work after we did our annual report for calendar year 2020 and presented that in January. We knew that we had some issues out at the Salem Salem Highway Basin, we call it MF11, and that's monitoring basin number 11. So we had done some extensive temporary flow monitoring in that basin to try to determine, again, the best way I can say it, if we were upside down. Had we made too many connections or had committed too many connections versus the capacity that the interceptor could handle. So I'm going to go through this, and again, it's a lot of numbers, and ask questions if you have them. I don't get too much in the weeds technically, although I've been told I still do, even though I try not to. But I wanted to go through this real quick with you all, and I did go through this with the council at their the December workshop just recently, and I did go through this with the Water Resources Board as well. So the memo that you had, we've actually gone in and taken a finer look at some of these things. So we found some errors in our first memo and our first report. So this presentation kind of clarifies or rectifies some of those errors. But to kind of give some history, in 2001, we created the Salem Barfield Special Sanitary Sewer Assessment District. That's the area in yellow. And we set a 750, we ran the main interceptor down Spence Creek. That was a $750 per single family unit assessment on top of our normal and standard connection fees. In 2007, we created a Basin D special sewer, that's the purple. And in 2014, we had the Three Rivers Phase 3 Special Sewer Assessment District, and you can kind of see how those overlay on top of each other. Now, I will say I did this red line, really everything to the east or to the right of that line is okay. That really goes back to the southwest interceptor that parallels the Middle Fork Stones River. Everything to the west of this is the area that's really affected by our sewer capacity limitations, and that's what goes to the, I guess you could call it the Spence Creek sewer interceptor. So right now, again, a little bit busy slide, but the dark blue kind of shows the number of connections we have on that interceptor. That's 2,412. What we have committed, we had said it was 1,643. It's really actually the area in red. That's 843 single-family units, and so there was really a spreadsheet summation issue that kind of double counted some things, but in the hydraulics, we did use the correct number of 843, so the model was set up correctly. We just had an error in some summation of the spreadsheet. So the kind of the question was, well, what are those 843 units? And this is something that you all haven't seen, but these are the projects and the project names of those projects that have been committed. They're actively being worked. They're actively connecting to the sewer. So really, that 843 that we talk about approved or committed, some of those have probably connected here over the last several months, so that number may be less than 800 at this point, or less than 700. So everything's very dynamic. You guys know how fast things are growing around here, and so keeping, you try to take a snapshot, and as soon as you take a snapshot, 1 month later, things have almost got to hit reset. So what we've said is that we're at capacity. With what we've got connected and what we have committed, we have some low-lying manholes along Spence Creek that, based on our temporary flow monitoring and under the kind of a 2-inch rain event, if we make all of those 843 connections, we are at risk for overflowing into the creek, which is not a good position to be in, right? That violates our MPDS permit. So we have come back and working with Valerie and Marshall, I said, what do we have to do to get some capacity back out there? And so you can kind of see the orange areas, and kind of the solid orange are tracks that are inside the city. The dashed or the hatched tracks are not inside the city limits, but they're inside the basin. So there's about 971 acres out there that's available for future development. But we've determined, even with the $6.35 million in improvements that we're proposing, we're only going to get about 3,724 new connections by spending that money. So that's quite a bit of money, but we feel like it's appropriate to perform the work in order to get those new connections and that extra capacity. So that's where I come at the bottom here. So 3,724 plus the 843, that's about 4,567. So you call the 843 are booked, those are committed. 3,724 would be new projects. If there is an increase in density request, rezoning, that would eat into that 3,724, and those are kind of the orange areas that we've highlighted in the map. This is really just a high-level overview of what the improvements we have to make. I won't go into the footages and the sizes and so forth. The only part that's a little bit tricky is, if I can do this thing have a pointer options, is this black line here. If you can see the pointer up there that I'm kind of laser pointer, that has to be relocated, so that's going to require some new easements and some basically getting the sewer into some higher ground and away from that low-lying area along Spence Creek. A lot of the other work is going to be inside the same, it's basically going to be increasing the diameter of pipe that's already in the ground. And so you can kind of see that. And so there may be some temporary construction easements that we have to get, but we're not going to have to go through a full permanent sewer easement acquisition. So this is where we're talking about, it's about $6.35 million for the 3,724 new connections. We do have a proposal from ELI for $444,000. That's gone to the Water Resources Board at the last board meeting, and it's going to council tomorrow night for approval. There is some other stuff, and I bring this up just because these are projects that were done previously. We actually bid this. We thought it was going to be about $1 million. It came in at $4 million. We rejected the bids. We're going to incorporate this into the other improvements I just showed you. There's a 15-inch bottleneck up here that we have to increase to a 24-inch. And then we're talking about replacing a section of carrier pipe or sewer gravity pipe that's going through a casing under New Salem Highway. We're hoping that can be around $2 million if we incorporate that into this bigger project. So you're really looking at about $8.35 million in improvements out in this basin. We talked about a potential combined, we may do a sanitary sewer, take all the outstanding. There's about $2.3 million in remaining balance on those previous sewer assessments we talked about. If you add the $6.325 million, we felt like the $2 million of improvements were bottlenecks that we as a system should just take care of, so we didn't add, or just kind of saying, hey, that should be system improvements that the department should pick up. Anyway, this looks like something, if you take the time value of money over a 15-year period, it would be about $2,463 per new connection. That's on top of our existing connection of $2,250. There's a lot of moving parts on this. There's the American Rescue Plan Act money. There's a potential for the Water Resources Department to receive several $1 million in ARP money. So there may be, if the Water Resources Board and City Council so choose, maybe maybe there's a co-funding amount that ARP money comes in to help offset some of the costs here, and that full burden wouldn't be put into a special assessment district. I've thrown that out there just because, if we get a bunch of $20+ million in ARP money, we could designate some of that to go to these improvements and not pass that on in the form of an assessment. The conclusions, I've kind of probably mentioned these on the way, but I didn't write a very good conclusion on the original memo where I said we can't support any increased rezoning request that results in increase in sewer connections. I really should have included or new projects at this time. We're at capacity. I think I must just have been in the mindset of that we were dealing with a lot of increased density requests, and I phrased it in a way I probably should have just said, hey, we just don't need to approve any more new connections until we start these improvements. So we hope to start them in the fall of next year. I think we've got the design elements pretty well done, and it's just going to be getting the construction plans together, get the easements acquired, if there's any permitting required, and get this thing bid out, hopefully by the summer, and starting construction in the fall. Until we start issuing some will serve letters for new projects or some increased density projects. So we do have the design contract. I mentioned that. That's going tomorrow to the city council, $444,000. And there may be a special sewer assessment district coming up in some form or fashion, whether we use ARP money or not. That's another decision that has to be made. But this is really just to inform you all that right now we're not issuing any will serve letters based on the fact that we are at capacity, and we feel that there's a low enough risk that when we start the improvements that we can start reissuing the will serve letters. Hopefully that'll be by late summer, early fall next year. But I didn't want anybody to be caught off guard, which some people already kind of have been a little caught off guard by this. But I wanted to bring it to you all's attention to let you know kind of where we were on. It's really just a timing thing, right? It's not a no. It's not no more sewer. It's just we got to get some improvements in place so that we gain some capacity. So I can answer questions if you have any.
So are you saying that there are no more will serve letters just in this basin?
Yes, ma'am.
Not
system-wide. This is just specific to this particular basin. The good news is that downstream, we did the Southwest Regional Pump Station, so that 3,400 new connections, the Southwest Pump Station is going to be able to handle that capacity. So there's not a ripple effect, like we're doing improvements here, and then we got to do improvements on down the line to the plant. This really is specific to this bowl, and we've got capacity downstream to handle it.
So it'll actually be more expensive to develop a parcel in this basin than it might be in the next basin?
Yes, ma'am.
If you have this new special assessment district, or?
Yes, if we do put an assessment district on there, then it would be I say that, we've got, Medical Center Parkway's got a $10,900 per acre special assessment plus the overall creek assessment district. So we've got some, I don't call it high rent districts right now, but we've kind of got some areas that are pretty high on the special assessments. So this is going to be higher, maybe not the most expensive part of town, but it'll definitely, if we do that and don't offset that money somehow, it will be a higher fee. Right now I think it's $750. So if we go to $2,400, that's 3 times.
Sir, this is probably not a planning commission question, it's a curiosity question. So you mentioned this ARP money. When do you know if you'll get it? And then is there any cost to the city with respects to that money?
So the way I understand it right now, I should have brought a slide. I have a slide for this. I may actually, if y'all entertain me here a minute, I may actually have it on another presentation if you guys will give me just a second. Have PowerPoint will travel. You're a tough crowd. I know.
Thought it was funny, Mr. Gore.
Thanks, Matthew. This was our CIP that I presented to the Water Resources Board last meeting. And I did a little thing here at the last slide to kind of give them a heads up about this. So there's kind of, the first bucket is really kind of a city allocated bucket of $24 million that the city's receiving directly. And so the kind of the course view of how that money is going to break out, there's $1 million public health benefit, and this is actually, we've talked about taking this back to the council in January to get to refine maybe where this money is going to go. We talked about $1 million in public health benefit, 1.5 in economic impacts, $3 million in communities and families, $2 million in essential workers, $10.5 million for water and sewer infrastructure, and $6 million for stormwater improvements. Now, there's another bucket of money that's coming that's being allocated through the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. It's going to so it's based on a pro rata population share of the county, and I hate to say it, but this I needed to update this. This 41.5 was the total the county and the city was looking at receiving 18.7, and there was a 40% match. So I think that answers part of your. This is the only component that I can say we were. But now,
So the city would have to
we would have to
propose that you would do the match.
Right, we would do the match.
Yeah.
The only, this number's changed. They actually redid the formula and introduced an ability to pay index component so that the more disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged counties were going to get more. So I think this $41.5 million has actually dropped to just around $28 million. So it was about a 40 or 45% haircut to what we thought we were going to get to what we're now expected to get. And that was because, again, they felt like the more economically advantaged counties didn't need as much as they're trying to. Their big focus is getting infiltration inflow out of the sewer and getting water losses out of the distribution systems, and so they're really trying to put more money to the disadvantaged counties. But there's still going to be a nice little, bucket of money that's unexpected coming our way.
Does this include the TDEC money you were talking about?
The bottom table is so the $24 million is coming straight to the city, and I'm going to apologize, but that 41.5 is really more like 28 now. That's the 28 million is coming from TDEC.
Okay.
And so we get, if you look at the percent of total, we're going to get 45%
of 28.
Of the 28, yes. Something in that range.
We still have to determine, though, that even if we have some money to spend on water and sewer or whatever, that we would want to dedicate that number of dollars to just this one basin because, just so they can continue to do what they're doing out there. It wouldn't be really system-wide necessarily, which, that's probably what you're talking about. It's kind of a council or water board or whatever kind of a question, but.
We've got 100, well, this slide here, I know that's, again, busy, but we've got about $106 million identified in our 5-year CIP, and we've got about $25 million on top of that we've earmarked maybe to go get some debts. We have to go get a loan to do a large, the Northeast Regional Pump Station. So we're really around 126, 127 million over 5 years.
So 45% of 28 million is a little help. But.
It'll help, sure. It may offset us having to go out and getting a loan.
Well, that's just newfound money.
It is.
It's not anything y'all planned on.
No. I hate
5 years ago,
I hate to say it, but you look at 41.5 million and then they say 28 and you're like, you want to get mad and then you're like, well, no, this is really just kind of.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice just to get anything. So we were not expecting this at all.
From a planning perspective on this particular question, I found some of this, it's hard for me to see it, but looks like a third of that 971 acres or so is already in the city. And do we know out of that 346 acres, like what the density is of the zoning?
No, sir. We could look at that, or do we? Valerie, do we know?
Well, for what's inside the city, when we were doing our calculations, and Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, we went with the current zoning and what the sewer allocation ordinance would allow for that zoning to get the number of units that property might develop at, or could develop at currently.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So existing zoning and what the sewer allocation would allow as far as single-family units for that zone.
So we do have that. But we're not going to be able to get the entire 970 acres at I mean, the stuff that's outside the city limits right now, we didn't assume a zoning for that, did we?
Well,
Backed it out into the flow, remaining flow that we had, and came up with a number of units.
It wasn't based on acreage, it was based on flow.
Okay.
Well, I guess the point being, two or three or fourfold, number one is if there are 3,724 new connections coming, if the current zoning that's already in the city of the 346 or 8 acres right there, if we're already at 5.2 units per acre with the current zoning of those, that means that we got to be aware that the rest of this has to come in at 2.9 or whatever, right?
Right,
I mean,
right.
And we need to be thinking about how we want to address that. I mean, I guess I'm curious as to, thinking about where we are right now and where how we have to think about this going forward, and, from our perspective, from a budgeting standpoint, whether or not we're going to dedicate $6 million to this, or 7 or 8 or whatever the number comes out to be, whether we have some free money or not, because there's going to be an opportunity cost if we use that money here that we could have used to, do something else potentially. I mean, have we looked at what the density is in this area? I mean, is density part of the problem? Is it not part of the problem? Is it?
Well, the Salem's, is density the problem? So I mean, the reason that we're kind of here now is because, if you remember on the annual report, I really looked at the Salem sewer, because that was, 2001, that was greenfield, pretty much. Very few developments in over 20 years. I went back and looked at our original assumptions of density, and then I compared that to the actual density, and I said, we're letting in about, it wasn't much, but it was 10-15% more dense than what we had originally planned. But to get back to what we originally planned, we were going to have to reduce density by 25% or somewhere in that range. So it's not a problem, other than, we just didn't design the sewer intercepting. This is just the cost to go back.
$7 million.
So I know it's $7 million.
$7 million is the problem.
It is.
I mean, that is a problem, that we're having to come up with $6 or $7 or $8 million because we didn't deal with it 10 years ago. Right? I mean, that's kind of part of where I'm getting at. And I guess for our purposes, we have to have the wherewithal when the number's 3.8, that somehow we're willing to either say it's 3.8 and not fall back on, well, we're just going to keep pressing the money at it and spending taxpayer dollars to fix the problem, rather than saying, well, this is what it'll serve. Because, I mean, the alternative to this right here is there is no recommencement of the will serve letters. We don't dedicate the money, and there is no recommencement. Right? I mean, if we just say, well, look, all the units are spent now, the basin's full, and it's just it.
And that's good. That's a good point.
Exactly. This is exactly what we have been worried about for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and on a broader.
So obviously I live and breathe this stuff. So we've gone through one annual report of the sewer. We've gone in and looked at 16 big watersheds, and we've said we've got this much capacity in these watersheds. And so we're going to come back in January workshop at the council, and we're going to have our second annual report. So we're going to be able to compare the first annual report to the second annual report. If you remember the first annual report, we said there was $38 million in improvements, the Northeast Regional Pump Station and the overall Creek Pump Station upgrade, that were really necessary to give us a 15% increase overall with capacity. And I'll remind you of these things. But as we get more refined and mature and sophisticated, we will be able to get, this is just of that larger watershed 11. Now we have a pocket in there that we know we've got an opportunity to spend, if we want to spend the $6.35 million to get these new connections, as compared to the capacity around, so you'll be able to see this in context to the framework of the entire city. And then as we mature year to year to year to year, you'll see how those numbers are changing. Are we starting to butt up against that ceiling number? Because I think it will become clearer and you all will become more accustomed to dealing with the sewer capacity issue as we continue to give you more and more information.
Right.
And give you the context under which all of this
It's good info.
is framed.
Information, I mean, it's good.
And then you can make more educated decisions, like, is that juice worth the squeeze or not? Because I will say this, the 3724 that's out there, once we make these improvements, that's it for this basin out there, unless we do some kind of banjo work and pump it over into another basin somewhere, maybe.
Well, I think that's where setting expectations is very key to developers and landowners, everything, because if we don't set these expectations now, they're going to be out buying land that they have no chance of really doing anything with.
Yes, sir, that is I would rather take a little bit of chin music right now. My biggest nightmare, and I think I've said this, is for somebody to have bought the land, put in the infrastructure, be halfway through their building process, and then all of a sudden we say, oh no, you can't hook up another house when they've got millions of dollars invested. This is, as you said, to set expectations to the development community to say, hey, recognize, count the cost. Is this a higher rent district? Is this, are we butting up against that ceiling of sewer connections? And they are going to have to get more sophisticated in how they speculate in Murfreesboro as well.
I know the council's going to have more discussion about this too, but I mean, for our purposes at planning, and I don't know the right answer here, whether what's legal or what's right. I'm just kind of brainstorming here for us to all consider and think about what might be, the way that we address this, okay? So assuming that we do come up with the money to make the improvements so that we can continue to grow in that area, what would everybody be willing to, and what is legal to put in place in the area to, I would not spend $6 million. There is zero chance I would approve spending $6 million and still allow people to come in and soak up all of those units on a small portion of the property, i.e. high density, 16 units an acre, 25 units, and whatever the number is, and then all of a sudden they're just gone, and you still have 800 acres left of the 971, I mean, there's just no way that's okay.
Yeah, limit it to 2.5, 3.
Yeah, I don't know can you limit it? I don't know what's legal or what's right at this point. I'm just kind of trying to say, it seems like the very first thing that pops into my mind is that, okay, well, all this 971 acres, it's 5 units an acre maximum. The number's 3.8 on the math, but if you allow a little wiggle room for the people who are willing to come in early and do the development or whatever that we try to accommodate, maybe it's 5 and that leaves somebody else 2, but nobody's taking 9 or 11 or 17 so that a bunch of people are left with 0. I guess is kind of my, how do we want to address that? Because I think we are to that point. And frankly, to me, from a council perspective, not a planning perspective, but a council perspective, it would have to be something, and there would have to be something in place for me to feel okay about dedicating the money. I mean, I'm already concerned about dedicating it to one basin, much less dedicating it to
one area
of just a few pieces of property. They're going to take advantage of the entire 6, and I'm already worried about what's already zoned in the 300 and something acres, and what does that density already look like, and how do we treat that? Because if it's already at 9 units an acre, which I'm sure it isn't, but if it mathematically was already at 9, we've already soaked up most of the 3,000 units, right? And so that the rest of the 600 and some odd acres is a moot point anyway. But that's the kind of stuff that I would want to know as we get ready to start thinking about how we're going to deal with the 6 million or 8 million, however much you said, there might be more on top of that. That's the stuff I'd want to know. And then, of course, how we plan to address it from a planning perspective would be a very important thing for me. So y'all be sort of thinking about how you might think would be the best way to proceed so that we can talk through it and maybe whether we're going to make a recommendation to council or whatever the next step would be.
So there's, just me again thinking about, there's always been the first come, first serve has been really the approach, right? Is whoever comes in and gets it and is willing to take the risk and ask for what they ask, and they've kind of gotten what they've got. Then there's the other end of the spectrum where you uniformly say nobody can go over 3.8. That's probably unrealistic too, right? So you're talking about something in between those two positions. You know, maybe first come, first serve, they get an advantage. They don't get a crazy advantage, but they get an advantage of some degree. I don't know what that...
Naturally just started off at some number higher, like 5. The number may be 7. I don't know.
Right. I mean, if you assume it's a 10-year deal and you've got 370 units to dole out every year, do you give the first 3 years a special density and the last, you could look at it over time. If you get in within this window, this window, this window. Just saying, it's an interesting situation, and I would always say this too, there's always exceptions. So as soon as you put down or try to come up with a rule, something will come along to blow the rule up. But
did this body, I wasn't here at the time, but did this body deal with the property out on Mercury Boulevard that I know the council did? Was that the council?
Council.
The Mercury Boulevard deal.
Yeah, where we mixed. I mean, did that?
Well, there's a lot of property on Mercury Boulevard.
No, I'm sorry. The one where we
talking?
wouldn't allow them to build. They were zoned.
2.5. We set a maximum of 2.5 units per acre. And I'm getting better at coming to the Planning Commission. I still got to get better coming to the Planning Commission when we have situations. This was like 3 or 4 years ago.
0.
No. We said everybody could go to the commercial density, that they could still sign up for commercial densities. We did. And we've actually got a plan there too. We've got some infrastructure improvements to be able to pump it into that one. Actually, we've got an opportunity to pump it into a different basin and open, because there's like 50-something acres out there that was.
So did we just deny him the capability to do what he wanted?
We denied the multifamily. But we said you can come back.
Even though he had the zoning.
Even though he had the zoning.
So that's I think what we want everybody to be able to avoid 10 or 15 or 20 years.
What we've been used to as a planning commission was, by the time we see something here, we've got this attachment that lists all the different city departments that have looked at it, and everybody says it's all okay, and we're looking at a 20-acre tract of land, and we're just deciding whether he can fit his parking in there, or if he can fit, can he get the dumpsters in and out, and all that kind of stuff. We're not, we're way beyond, we think all that's already been done by the time we're looking at it. So I think a lot of this really big picture stuff is something that Planning Commission was, I don't think, not saying it wasn't presented to us, maybe it didn't need to be presented to us, it doesn't need to be presented.
Well, there was no
on to them.
There was no application. This was just conversation, and we were talking about, that particular property owner never prepared any plans to be submitted for approval.
Yeah.
But just in general, it's not been on our radar. And I think it is very important for this body to understand that level of what's going on, for us to be able to make educated decisions up here. Or otherwise, we just sit here and approve things that come through thinking they're all just fine and dandy, not knowing or understanding everything else that's going on within the city. So we appreciate very much.
Yeah, I agree.
Educated on, some of these bigger picture things that are going on that affect the decisions that we make.
And again, we'll get better at it, at presenting it to you, and I think the future land use map is still out there, and reconciling future land use map with sewer allocation, those two things are going to have to be fully integrated. Because I'll be back here in January too, once we give the second annual allocation report. I'll present it to you all and the council and the Water Resources Board like I did last year, so that'll give you refamiliarize yourself with what we did, and that'll we're just going to get better and better at it, hopefully, and everybody will see the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you all.
We
Appreciate your time.
Very much. And we're happy to come sit in the audience when you present it to this other body. Or if you want to do it 3 times, we're fine with that too.
I will do whatever you all would like to do. I will
Whatever
be
works
happy
for
to-
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do we need any, that's just all for our information there, so there's no motion or anything, but we do have 2 other items that we need to discuss under staff reports and other business. I believe Mr. Hankins has another item for us regarding a mandatory referral easement to MTEMC.
And if the cable department could go back to my screen.
Thanks again, Chair Jones. Yes, this is another item for approval. This is actually to grant an easement to Middle Tennessee Electric across the tract at the corner of Fortress and Blaze that the city currently owns and will be leasing to the county for their one-stop administration facility. Does everybody have a copy of the handout in front of them? Okay. You can kind of see, I don't know how well it came through with the various levels of copying. In the upper right quadrant, there's a red line that shows where Middle Tennessee is going to be running. I believe that's some underground facilities to be able to serve these properties. And then they're, I think, looking at a total of 20-foot easement to surround that proposed line.
There we go. It's on the screen now. It's this area right here.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Unless there's any questions.
Yeah. Anybody?
So I guess we need a
I'll
motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the granting of the easement.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hankins. And then Mr. Blomley has an item regarding Bridge Avenue right-of-way abandonment.
Yes, thank you. You recall at our December 1st meeting, there was a right-of-way abandonment that Planning Commission recommended for approval for an alley that was never constructed along Bridge Avenue and Kings Highway. This is actually on the council's consent agenda for tomorrow to formally ratify the action of the Planning Commission. In speaking with Mr. Ives last week, you'll notice that here, this segment of right-of-way is noticeably narrower than the rest of the right-of-way that we're requesting to be abandoned. At some point, it appears that half of that right-of-way was transferred to the owner of this property. However, what we suspect is that may have been done kind of informally so even though it's shown up on GIS as a part of this property, what we wanted to do was, in the council's action, is make their approval subject to it, including any interest that the city still has in that half of right-of-way that appears to have at some point been transferred to the adjacent property owner. So we've included that recommended condition of approval to the council. There's no action that you need to take, but in talking to Mr. Ives, we thought it would be good just to apprise you of that additional area that we're asking council to take action on tomorrow night.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions for Mr. Blomley? We appreciate you letting us know about that. Thank you very much.
I have one question. In the previous one, or in the one that's above the red line, did we do the same thing there?
No, we stopped 3 parcels deep right there.
The question is was the right-of-way abandonment handled correctly with that one?
For this parcel right here? I don't know. We didn't look at that parcel. It was, we knew that the owner of these 2 parcels had an imminent development plan on those 2 parcels, and so just as a way to clean things up for him with an imminent development plan, we thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and include that in council's motion.
It just looks weird, that's all.
Yeah, and that's what we find with those old alleys, is it's kind of a hodgepodge of widths, and some appears to have been transferred to adjacent property owners at some point in time, but tracking down all of the legal documentation for what was transferred when, it's a task in and of itself.
Got it.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if there's no other business,
I would also mention, just as a reminder, that our January evening meeting is on the second Wednesday, January the 12th, instead of January the 5th, just in case anybody has travel plans that first week of January. We made that January 12th at 6 p.m.
and we will have one item on our agenda, so
We might find
late.
we might find a few other things to put on there. Make it worth your time.
Okay, so we wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and happy any other holiday you might be celebrating, and we will adjourn our meeting.